Needs and influences. Gender biases have generally been accepted as cultural forms for decades, from color designations, pink or blue, to extracurricular activities, sports or dance, to emotional behaviors, aggressive or compliant. Society has often guided and defined gender roles, but a major shift in opinions and attitudes about gender socialization is underway in the United States, and classrooms are not exempt. The term achievement gaps is usually defined as the differences between the test scores of minority and/or low-income students and the test scores of their white and Asian peers. Test score gaps often lead to longer-term gaps, including high school and college completion and the kinds of jobs students secure as adults. Gender stereotypes. Traditional gender stereotypes in the U.S. generally say that men should be the breadwinners while women should be the primary housemakers. Men are assertive while women are timid. Males are talented in math and science while women are talented in the languages. The most important aspect is to think about the beginning stages of the children, starting in the classroom environment and the type of teacher that is involved. The teacher plays a very important role in the individual's social environment and can already start to influence the girl's performance in math, science, and any subject to have the greatest potential without stereotyping. Same goes for the boy students. Implementing gender-equal classroom practices early on in elementary school level can mend gender achievement gaps that can possibly manipulate the effects and end the stereotypes years down the road, because we all know that stereotypes is not an easy thing to forget. The teacher plays a huge role in a student's life, and depending on the teacher's own personal gender, other characteristics, and beliefs about gender roles affect test scores of their students.
Today, our boys and girls remain the victims of gender stereotypes in text and resource materials. They are also victims of unintended or sexist behaviors by educators. Often, teachers reflect varied expectations for children based on a student's gender, class, race, and ethnicity. Some biased behaviors in the classroom can include segregated seating patterns that reinforce unequal teacher attention. Boys are also more likely to be called up to the front of the room to do demonstrations. Also, usually male students receive more teacher questions than female students. Teachers also provide minimal wait time for females to answer questions. Boys are more likely to be disciplined than girls, even when the misbehavior is identical. Girls are more likely to be praised for their appearance and neatness of their work. Many teachers participate in gender bias actions without even realizing it. It is an unconscious act that has many effects on students in the classroom. Here are some questions that you as a teacher can ask yourself to analyze if you are being gender biased. Who do I call on when hands are raised in the classroom? Boys or girls? Do I address them in the same manner? Do I equally scold both genders when problems and issues arise in the classroom? Do I have the same expectations of all of my students? And do I provide equal amounts of help, feedback, encouragement, and praise? Finally, here are some suggestions to avoid gender bias in the classroom. Use inclusive language, such as referring to the class as "Hey class." Avoid stereotyping jobs for students. Make the classroom atmosphere one where both boys and girls are encouraged, questioned, and reinforced. Actively integrate groups. Model gender balance by what you say and do. And apply classroom rules fairly for both boys and girls.
What is gender inclusion? Gender inclusion is a healthy way to support the healthy growth and development of all students, including transgender students. In order to learn, children need to feel safe. Because many people in the world are still unfamiliar with the idea of what it means to be transgender, all too often, this leads to bullying. As teachers, we want our classrooms to be a good learning space for all of our students. Gender inclusion is a method of teaching in which teachers and students work together to create a supportive learning environment that gives each student, male or female, an equal access to learning. So what does having an inclusive classroom look like? A classroom that is truly gender inclusive has students that accept one another for who they are. Students respect each other's opinions, clothes, and choices in life. What is the problem with not having a gender inclusive classroom? According to Welcoming Schools, a project of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation, if children feel they aren't safe, being treated fairly, or if they're preoccupied with being teased or bullying, they won't be able to focus on their schoolwork. Teachers say if students wait to talk about bullying, they can face harassment or bullying, and this can lead to higher dropout rates. How to make a classroom gender inclusive. Use inclusive language that emphasizes all children can. Use inclusive phrases to address the entire class. Examples could be students, children, or scholars, rather than boys and girls or ladies and gentlemen. When grouping students, avoid grouping by gender. Create groups by favorite color, tables, heights, colors of shoes, etc. Demonstrate it's okay to do things outside the gender norm. Give examples of how you or people like you do things outside the gender stereotypes. Have toys and activities for both gender. Read good books. Seat students by mixing them up by gender. Let's take a look at an example you might come across in a classroom. A little boy gets frustrated in class and starts to cry. The class makes fun of him and calls him a girl. What would you do as this little boy's teacher? You're right. You would tell the class that being sad is an emotion that everyone is allowed to feel and that our emotions don't define who we are.